There were times when the Sri Lanka economy dominated the whole Asian countries. Sri Lanka was the fastest growing in 20th century when both India and China were struggling. But now, all that turn around. State of emergency has been declared in Sri Lanka. Social media websites also have been banned. Sri Lanka government cancelled all the exams in the entire nation due to the scarcity of paper and ink. Newspaper printing is also stopped. There are so many power cuts in the country of Sri Lanka. People are getting electricity for only 4 hours a day. Sri Lanka electricity minister has directed the officials to turn off the street lights to save power. What causes Sri Lanka to hit a crisis like this? Let's get into this video and find the reasons for the defeat of the Sri Lanka economy. Every nation in this world has their own debts. A country borrows a loan when there is a need. A country takes loans for their development. If a country borrows a loan from another country or any other foreign organization, it is called as foreign debt. In order to borrow a loan from other countries, they have to borrow only through US dollar. Because the US dollar is considered as a global reserve currency. As of now, the foreign debt of Sri Lanka amounted to around $52 billion, for which they have to pay $6 billion as a repayment this year. But currently Sri Lanka has only $2 billion. Then how will they pay the remaining debt this year? Why did Sri Lanka borrow so much money? It is okay to borrow loans. But we have to make sure that whether we have the ability to repay or not. Before 2010, the Sri Lanka government borrowed money only through concessionary loans. Now, we need to understand what these concessionary loans are. Concessionary loan is a loan made on favorable terms than the borrowers would obtain in the marketplace. The concessionary terms may be one or more of the following: a lower interest rate below deferred repayments, income contingent repayments. These concessionary loans are offered at an interest rate of 1% per annum, and the loan is to be repaid in 3 to 5 decades. But after 2010, the Sri Lanka government started borrowing commercial loans for the development of the nation. You may ask, why Sri Lanka borrows commercial loans instead of concessionary loans? To understand this, you have to know that concessionary loans can only be borrowed on their affordability, whereas commercial loans are to be borrowed easily, but they charges high interest rates, that is, about 6% per annum. As you can see how commercial loans have increased in the past decade. The Sri Lanka government invested all this money in development projects like highways and Hambantota port. And they mainly invested to develop tourism in the country. The Sri Lanka government never thought much about developing other sectors. Until 2019, the Sri Lanka government has no hesitation to repay the loans. But now they are struggling to repay because they don't have foreign reserves. Any country can get foreign reserves only if their exports are higher than their imports. But due to some reasons, this country imports more goods and services than what they have been exporting in recent years. Now let us find the reasons behind why their foreign reserves decreased gradually over the period of last 2 years. In 2019, Sri Lanka was one of the world's top destinations for tourism. Sri Lanka tourism alone contributes 13% of their economy. About $7 billion had been contributed for their foreign reserves only through tourism. But in 2019 April, there were multiple bombings in the country, now known as the Easter Day bombings. 3 churches and 3 luxury hotels were targeted across several cities. Totally 269 people were killed in those attacks. 45 of them were foreign nationals. This is how their tourism reckoned. After this incident, till now, no traveler had traveled to Sri Lanka. As a result, tourism fell by 80% since terrorist bombings. In 2019, the government of Sri Lanka declared to cut off the value-added tax, VAT. Their logic behind this was, if this tax was cut off, people have more money with them for not paying extra money on the fuels or others. So, they assumed that people would spend more money than usual. That the economy of their country will be more stable. Of course, this was successfully worked out in many countries. But here the scenario changed. This idea failed here due to the pandemic in 2020. Honestly, this was a nice idea, but executing in the pandemic effects, due to which no one spent their money in the lockdown. In 2019, the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Rajapaksa, stopped importing fertilizer. He thought that they don't have to spend their foreign reserves for the fertilizer. Instead, he instructed all the farmers in his country to do organic farming. But due to the immediate action on, not to import fertilizer, their agriculture products are down by 50% as fertilizer and pesticide give more yield than the organic farming. Before of that, Sri Lanka exported tea largely, but due to this organic farming, instead of exporting they started importing from other countries. Not only tea but also other commodities like rice, cereals, have been importing from other countries. Now, they are paying more money for importing commodities than they usually paid to import fertilizer. We discussed earlier that the Sri Lanka government borrowed loans to build Hambantota port. But later, due to losses from the port, the government decided to privatize the port up to 85% of their share, which is now owned by a Chinese company. Actually, this port was built by taking loans from China and again, this was sold to them.